Okay, cool. So you know the cage system, C, A, G, E, D, and also A minor, E minor, D minor. And maybe you also know you can move those chords up. So if you take E, not using the index finger, but using every other finger, then you can move it up. Put that index finger there, and then you can make bar chords. And then you have major chords and minor chords all over the entire neck, all over the fretboard. Cool and everything, but now what? How do we create more interesting chords? How do we move further with these chords? Now, first thing I hope you're going to do when you go on this journey is just try stuff out. It's not the last stop we're going to have in this video, but definitely make sure when you play a chord, just try adding a note. See, well, maybe I'm going to add that note. That's a sound, you can use that. Maybe you want to add this note. Okay. Gotta admit, I'm a bit less of a fan, but it's a sound. You can use that. That's a thing. This might be a bit better. I really like adding this one. I think that's really beautiful. So that's one way you can go about it. Just take a chord you know, add a note somewhere and see what that sounds like and see if you like it. This lets you explore in a more of childlike way, and this is a great way to have fun and come up with new chords that you didn't know yet. But that's not the only thing we can do. We're going to see if we can be a bit more conscious about what it is we're adding. And the first thing you need to know is a major scale. Can you play a major scale, or like this? Maybe all the way up over all 6 strings, or maybe like this. Because if you can play a major scale, you can find note 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you can find them in a higher octave. And then you can tell yourself to add a certain note. So what did I do here? Well, let's take G. And I played this scale. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and there's the octave. And then the 9th or the 2nd, depending on how you count. We can add this note. And that's what I did here. Now we are consciously adding notes. Now we have a G with a 2nd added to it. Right? I think that's a great sound. Earlier I played E, but I added the 6th. That's this note. Now how do I know that that's the 6th? Well, this is the second thing you need to learn about these chords. You need to know when you're playing a chord, which of these notes is the 1, which is the 3rd, and which is the 5th. So which is the root, 3rd and 5th. If you know that, then you can alter these notes. You can change them. So I know the 5th is there. It's a B string. In an E chord, B is the 5th. So that's the 5th. This is the minor 6th, the major 6th, the minor 7th, the major 7th, and we're back at the octave. Right? So we could play E major 7 like this. That's one way of playing E major 7. Or E7. Or E6. Or E major with a minor 6th. Which is a bit weird, but it's feasible. You could theoretically come up with this chord and you can try it out. This is what you need to learn if you want to create your own chords. So let's take a look at where the notes are in all the basic chords, because if you know those, you're done. You can just apply that knowledge and mess around with it. And the more you mess around with it, the better you get at creating your own chords. First thing you need to know, E, A, and D have some similarities. We start out with the root, and the 5th, and then the root. Or octave, but it's the same note. It's the root again. That's a power chord. It's what rock guitarists use. It has the power chord in the bottom, just like A. Root, 5th, root, just like D. Root, 5th, root. And all 3 of those chords then add the 3rd. Okay, so that's the major 3rd. Only thing else you need to know, the only other thing you need to know is the rest of the notes. Now in an E chord, we've got E in the bass, and we've got E in the top. Of course that's the root. It's an E chord. This is the note E. It's the root. So what's in between? Well, I just showed you, didn't I? I just talked about this a second ago. It's the B string. B's the 5th. E, G sharp, B. B's the 5th. Okay, so you know 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1. 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, and then these strings are gone. There's no more string. Then 1, 5, 1, 3, and again we have no strings left. So those chords have very similar patterns. And actually the same thing goes for G and C. They have very similar patterns. Here we just stack the notes, or at least at first, we stack the notes in a very natural way. So we have the root, the third, the fifth, the root, the third, and then there are no more strings to put notes on. Because this is the third, you could go 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 4, 5. This is the fifth. This is why people sometimes play C like this, and sometimes they add the pinky, playing the fifth in the top. It's a bit brighter, it's a bit sharper, and might be a bit more suited for a chorus or something, but that's a matter of taste. Don't take my word for it. G does the same thing. It just stacks 1, 3, 5, 1, 3 if you take the open string, or 5 if you add that note to it. However, G has another note, doesn't it? Now we have all 6 strings, so we're adding the thinnest string, the first string, as well. Of course, these strings are both E strings. And if we have G here for a G chord, then we have G there as well. So that's just the root. So if you can remember that E, A, and D start out with a power chord, and then add the third, then you already have a lot of information on what the contents of those chords are. And for C and G, we're basically just stacking them 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, and then we can replace the 3 for the 5, depending on if you play G like this or like this. Knowing this, you can now change those notes. This can reveal all these sus chords, for example. If you know this is A, we know 1, 5, 1. On the second string, the B string, we've got a 3. Now let's make it sus 4. 4 is right next to 3. Now we have A sus 4. Going to 3. Let's go lower. Below the 3, that's 2. Of course, we don't need to know the between. That's just the minor third. Now we have A minor and A sus 2. A minor, A sus 4, A major. Okay, so this one string can play the 2, the minor third, the major third, or the 4. Screw it, we can play the augmented 4. Oh, that's kind of gnarly. Adding the 9th to a chord that has an augmented 11th or augmented 4th works really well, because they harmonize well together, because there's just a major third in between them. So if you got a chord with a sharp 11, maybe you want that harsh sound. Maybe you want to add some pain to your emotion, right? But if you want to smooth it out, add a 9th. That works really well. Maybe even a 6th. Maybe that's a bit too much. The major 7th might be a bit less weird. And now, what I'm showing you is fluency in these concepts. You can get there, just practice the things we already talked about. But this is what it's going to end up sounding like. I started here with A. I added a note. I thought, maybe I want to add this one as well. Let's see what it sounds like. If I add the 6, let's add the 7. Let's add the minor 7th. A bit of a sour sound, but that might be well suited for certain emotions in certain songs. And now you can create those sounds for yourself. So I hope this helped. You know what? I'm going to give you one more example. Let's take C as well. Now, I made another video in which I showed some of the most beautiful guitar chords I can create. I'll link to it at some point after this example. But let's take C and make it really pretty. Like make it C major 7th. Now how do we do that? 1, 3, 5, 1. We have another 1 here in the top, another root here at the top. The index finger is taking it. Lowering that gives us the major 7th. And lo and behold, we've got C major 7th, a beautiful chord already. There's nothing wrong with this whatsoever, but maybe we can improve it. One thing that's also really beautiful in chords is well-placed dissonance. Now, dissonance is when notes kind of don't work well together, but if every single of those notes works well with the root, then that ties it together in a beautiful way. So a major 2nd, just it's not horrible, but it doesn't really invite me to sing a pretty melody either. However, if you place it in this chord, now Now we have the major sixth, which goes well. You know, a major sixth, adding that to the chord works well. A major seventh works well. Add them both and have them rub up against each other. And now the sound is even more lush and warm. And maybe we can increase this effect even more by having the sixth rub up against the fifth as well. That's beautiful. Luckily we have a third here at the top, so we already have 1, 3, 5, and we're adding 6 and 7. Okay, a great exercise my first guitar teacher taught me for this is take an object from your room, like a can of soda or something, and try and come up with a chord that fits that object. Try and take elements from it, like a can can be cold and hard and sweet. The drink itself can be sweet, and try and take those elements and put them in a chord. And this gets you, puzzling and figuring out which sort of chords you can create, you want to create. And it's a really fun little explorative journey. And if you want to see what I came up with when I wanted to create some beautiful chords, there's another video I made just about this. Link is probably in the screen right now. And don't forget to subscribe if you want more content like this. See you guys next time. Ciao!